Hi, I'm Ola and this is 99% Able. I talk here about my life as a disabled independent person. Last week I said that today I'm gonna talk about the problem with Instagram that disabled activists and bloggers have recently, and this is that Instagram is shadow banning and censoring and deleting disabled people's photos and shadow banning their Instagram accounts even if they don't break the rules of Instagram. So I interviewed Ariel, who's an activist and blogger. His username handle is carpe.dm. I'll put it somewhere here. And he gave me an amazing interview. You can read about it more on my blog and I will link it below. But generally, the problem is that Instagram, when they are shadow banning or deleting photos or censoring them, they cut the reach of bloggers. People can't see these bloggers' stories, or bloggers can't use hashtags, and their photos are not visible on the timeline, like on this main Instagram page, even if people follow them. The only way to find their content is by writing, by searching for their whole username. So it really cuts their reach. And when you're an activist, the most important thing is to have a wide and a big reach so that people could hear more about your opinions and more about your activist work. So yeah, if you want to read more about it, I have a whole article about it on my blog, so I'll link it below. And yeah, I chose to ask Ariel about this interview because he also has shadow ban on Instagram after he posted a photo with Julian. Julian's Instagram is the disabled hippie, and Julian and Ariel posted this picture of themselves for Pride Month, and they did not break any regulations, but they both still got shadow banned. I'm pretty sure Julian was shadow banned before that, but they checked if Ariel would get shadow banned too if they post this photo, and he did. So yeah, that's why I chose to interview Ariel, because he's also very much involved in this whole problem with Instagram. And he also told me a bit about himself, and as he's a really interesting person, I thought that I would tell you what he told me about himself, about his disabilities, because of course he is a disabled activist and blogger. You can find a lot of information about his disabilities because he's very open about it on his Instagram. So if you want to read more, because of course I'm not gonna tell you everything, if you want to read more, just go to his Instagram, follow him, make sure to follow him because he's amazing, and read his it's in his highlights. I think the highlight name is personal, something like that, and in this personal highlight you can see all the information about all of his disabilities. So the first illness that he mentions is Hashimoto immune disease, and he was diagnosed at 9 years old. And fun fact, I guess it's not fun, but it's a fact. When I was probably about similar age, like 9, maybe 10 years old, maybe a bit younger, I'm not sure, my doctors thought that I have Hashimoto too, but then other doctor didn't diagnose me with that and diagnosed me with only hypothyroidism. So if you're not familiar with any of these thyroid diseases that I mentioned, which is Hashimoto and hypothyroidism, people who have it usually have to take medications for a lot of years or even their whole life. And some of them also have some really strict diets. So the next few illnesses that he mentions on his Instagram are borderline personality disorder, and he was diagnosed when he was 25 years old. The next one is that he's bipolar, and he was diagnosed at 27 years old. And the next one is complex PTSD, and he was diagnosed at 28 years old. So if you want to get to know more about these illnesses and problems too, just again go to his Instagram, and he's really open about it, and he has a lot of posts about it in his highlights. So if you're interested, or if you have similar problems and want to get to know better someone who has them too, just go to his Instagram page. So what I found really interesting, apart from all the things that I told you about before, because Ariel is generally a really interesting person, but what I've never heard about before, and I think I also told you about it in the last video when I was talking about activists and bloggers who I follow, and I said there that I would like to learn from Ariel about death positivity. So death positivity is all about death awareness and realizing and talking about the fact that we will all eventually die. And it is challenging people to just talk about it and think about their attitude to death. He first became aware of death positivity when he was an undergraduate in 2009, and he said that he started taking part in some deaf cafes, but also took part in cemetery preservation activism. So Ariel also said that this death positivity had a huge impact on his life because being affiliated with sex workers and being trans and disabled person himself, he just became more aware of death around him, surrounding him, and about also his own mortality. Okay, that's it. So thank you very much for staying till the end of this video, and if you want to learn more about Ariel, just check him out on Instagram and follow him. He's an amazing person, and again, Ariel, thank you very much for helping me if you're watching this. So yes, thank you and see you next week. Bye.